Hello, in this video we'll be talking about the essay on the SAT. Many students are pretty nervous about the essay when they start preparing for this test, but in truth it's one of the most coachable sections of the entire SAT. With a little practice and some solid strategy, you can have a great and high-scoring SAT essay. Let's have a look at some of the stats about the essay. The essay is the first section of the test every time, and you have 25 minutes to write it. You're given 2 blank pages, and as we'll see in a few minutes, you need to fill the space. You should write a 4 to 5 paragraph essay. You'll be graded by 2 people on a scale of 1 to 6. 1 is the worst score and 6 is the best. So you can expect a score between 2 and 12 on your score report. And lastly, the essay accounts for about 40% of your entire writing score. The questions that are asked on the essay are very broad. You don't need to know specific things about any subject area. These are questions about human life. Length is a hugely important aspect of the essay. You must fill the entire 2-page space provided. For whatever reason, longer essays always receive higher scores than shorter essays. Number 4 here, use examples from literature and history. We'll talk more about that in a second. And the last one, be clear. This is a place to say what you mean. Don't try to be creative or fancy or cute on the essay. Just say what you're trying to say. Here are a couple sample essay questions for you. Do we need other people in order to understand ourselves? Is the world changing for the better? Do people have to be highly competitive in order to succeed? I think you'll agree with me that these are very broad questions about human life. Again, you don't need specific information to do well on these. However, even though they're broad, you do need specific examples. You should come up with 3 examples that prove your point. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. The instructions for the essay say that we can rely on reading, studies, experience, and observations to prove our point. However, we really want to avoid personal experience and observations. We'd rather use reading and studies to prove our point. And the best things that we can use here are literature and history. I said a few minutes ago that you don't need specific knowledge to do well on this test. What I mean is, you don't need to have read certain books or taken specific classes to do well. However, you do need to draw on specific examples from your own studies and use them to prove your point. Have a look at this list and brainstorm with me for a couple minutes. Come up with 5 or 6 examples from history and 5 or 6 examples from literature. What we're looking for here are topics that you feel reasonably knowledgeable and comfortable talking about. You don't need to be a master about these topics, but throw down books that you've read for school and historical events, time periods, or people that you know a little bit about. The point here is, because the essay topics are so broad, you can write about almost anything that you feel comfortable with from literature or history, and it will probably help you talk about the question. Here's a sample essay outline for you. It's based on the tried but true 5-paragraph essay. We need an intro paragraph that sets out our thesis. And to talk about this outline, we'll use this following question. Do we need other people in order to understand ourselves? Here's my intro thesis. We need other people to understand ourselves, and this can be seen through the American civil rights struggle, J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye, and the novel 1984 by George Orwell. The next 3 paragraphs will be our standard body paragraphs. In each one, we'll introduce 1 example from either literature or history. For this proposed outline, I will use the examples I just mentioned, the American Civil Rights struggle, Catcher in the Rye, and 1984. Really, by answering the essay question appropriately, we're answering 3 questions. The first is yes or no. All of these questions will be yes or no choices. For instance, do we need other people in order to understand ourselves? My answer says yes. The next question we need to address is, how do we know? This is where we bring in our 3 examples. How do we know that we need other people in order to understand ourselves? Well, we know by looking at the American Civil Rights struggle, Catcher in the Rye, and 1984. Our third question is why. This question has the potential to tie together our three sources and present a very unified essay. In order to answer the why, think generally. Go beyond your three topics and think generally in life. Why is the answer to this question true? For example, why do we need other people in order to understand ourselves? If I think generally about it, I would say other people open up sides of ourselves that we often can't see on our own. And I think this is true about the civil rights struggle, Catcher in the Rye, and 1984. So after we think generally about the answer to the why, let's tie it into all three of our topics and link them together with some nice transitions. If you can do this, you'll have a unified essay that presents one very strong idea, and you'll be sure to get a pretty good score. Here are a couple essential tips for the essay. First of all, as I mentioned a couple times, you must fill the entire 2 pages provided. Secondly, make a decision. Pick one side of the issue, yes or no, and stick with it all the way home. That said, it's often helpful to acknowledge the other side. In one sentence, somewhere in your essay, you should admit that the other side exists and is somewhat valid, and then go right back to proving your main point. For example, in the issue that I've brought up earlier, do we need other people in order to understand ourselves? I might say something like this. Of course, not everyone needs other people in order to understand him or herself, but for most people and in many situations, having others around us can help us understand ourselves at a higher level. You'll probably agree that that was a pretty poorly worded sentence that I just made up on the spot, but you get the idea. A couple more tips for you. Be neat. Try to write legibly and clearly. Manage your time. You should spend 2 to 3 minutes planning your essay, 20 minutes writing, and about 2 minutes at the end to review and clean up any errors. Lastly, use what they give you. Each essay topic starts with a prompt that is about 5 to 7 lines long. You can paraphrase, quote, and use specific words from this prompt, and that will actually help the essay graders think that you're connecting directly with the essay topic and staying on task. The last thing I would mention is find a thread. Try to link together all 3 of your sources by answering the question why. If you can do this again, you'll have a unified essay, and that will surely help you. Here's a short checklist for you, and I'll let you go. When you're writing your essay, ask yourself all these questions and make sure you answer them appropriately. Did you answer the question, yes or no? Did you include 2 or 3 solid examples from literature and history? Did you link your examples together? Did you indent? This is key. You must indent each paragraph because it'll help the readers know that what's coming up next is important information. Did you write transitions between each of your paragraphs? Did you accurately sprinkle in a few nice vocabulary words? And lastly, did you make sure your introduction is free of errors? You never get a second chance to make a first impression, as they say, so write a solid introduction. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hopefully that helps you out with the essay. I'll talk to you soon.